My name is Benjamin Neuteboom. I'm part of Heineken Digital Technology, and I'm a member of what we call the collaboration product team.
If I would be a Heineken employee and I would like to use a certain third-party application, what would then the procedure would look like?
Yeah, so basically, in between, let's say, us and the business user or the end user, there's always the local IT. So the local IT is the first point of contact, which is local IT or the global service desk, and they are instructed to raise a ticket that ends up in, let's say, in our support group. So they can indeed raise tickets. They say, okay, we have this tool. Short description, maybe a link to the site, and also maybe the security description of that tool, and then we get it in our, let's say, our queue. We can assess it, and indeed, if we trust it as safe and no, let's say, license implications, then we can enable it.
365 apps.
My name is Benjamin Neuteboom. I'm part of Heineken Digital Technology, and I'm a member of what we call the collaboration product team. So we're in the team that's mostly responsible for Microsoft 365 products like email, SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, etc.
So we're gonna discuss Teams and SharePoint apps. And I'm curious to learn, how does Heineken approach the use of Teams and the SharePoint apps within the organization?
All right, so let's share a bit of history. I think Heineken was quite a, let's say, early adopter in the whole Microsoft Teams suite, and at start basically the application landscape in Microsoft Teams was much smaller, and at that time, basically, we started Teams. We enabled Teams for our users globally, and also that meant that the app catalog, as it was at that time, was, let's say, default, also including, let's say, third-party apps, because we always make a big distinction between Microsoft apps and third-party or external apps. However, at a certain moment, we noticed that, of course, a lot of apps were being developed and being, let's say, promoted, but they also, of course, have consequences. We don't always know if these apps are safe. We also, a lot of these apps look like they're free from the first look, but do require additional licenses, which means additional costs, and that's, of course, not always what we want. So at the quite early moment, we decided to, which is let's say a standard setting in the Microsoft Teams admin port, to not automatically publish or enable third-party apps in Microsoft Teams. So
How
what that
long
means?
Was this? If you would go back in history, where?
I think 2 years ago already. So I think we were already more than half a year busy with Microsoft Teams, and then we made that change when we realized that, okay, there's more and more coming, and we wanted to basically get more in control on okay, what's coming. So basically that's the first thing we did. We stopped, let's say, the wild growth of all the apps in our Microsoft Teams landscape, and then what we now do is basically for Microsoft apps, we allow them unless there is a reason not to do that. For example, some apps might need a bit of extra governance because they depend on the Dataverse, which is indeed a resource related to Power Platform, which also has its restrictions. So we also need to apply a bit more, let's say, strict governance on that. But mostly, let's say, all the Microsoft native apps are what we need trust and where we see the value. So for third-party apps, we do the following. So basically, those are really demand driven. So if there is within our business users a demand for, okay, we say, okay, we really need this specific app because it really helps with our productivity, or it is something we already have licenses for and we use as a cloud service, but now we want to make that integration with Microsoft Teams. Then of course they can just submit, let's say, what we call a change request, and then we enable that app in the app catalog, and consequently it will be visible in the app catalog. And then of course what we do is we also had to do a little bit of, let's say, cleanup of all the apps that were there in the catalog from the default, including third-party apps, to make sure that our landscape was a bit tidy. So what we did is it's quite simple to run a report also on app usage. So we ran a report to say, okay, which apps are actually used. If it was, let's say, 2 or less teams that had it installed, most likely those are people testing it, playing it around. Then for us that we could either investigate further, or that was sufficient information for us to say, okay, this is are we going to block until we really get a business request. So now at the moment we have a quite short list of apps that are enabled in Microsoft Teams. They mostly, of course, the standard Microsoft apps, also of course the new apps that are coming out, like we're now looking at, for example, Viva Insights, which is something we will enable, and but also third-party apps that we often use, like for example Mural. Mural is a brainstorming tool that we indeed have say an enterprise license of, that of course we allow in our Teams app catalog. If we talk about SharePoint, so SharePoint also is something where we of course want to have the amount of apps added there as little as possible. So basically what you have is, you have for SharePoint, you have your global app catalog, but there's also a way to allow your app catalog to be only available for a specific site collection. And that is basically the strategy we follow. So if there is a specific site, a site with a lot of customizations, that's really becoming more and more an application, and there's demand to say, okay, but we want to add this application to our SharePoint site, we can allow, they can submit a request. We have a standard form for that, which is called Enable Site Collection App Catalog. And if they submitted the request, our SharePoint support engineer can run a small PowerShell command, which is very standard, and that allows an app catalog to be available, but only for that site. So they can do what they want without impacting any of the other thousands of site collections we have in Heineken globally. And that basically covers 99% of all the demand we have. So people are happy, they can manage their own apps, they can install it, remove it, without having any dependency or impact on other sites. So that is basically what has been working for us mostly.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you told me about a certain process that you follow. For example, when a new Microsoft app becomes available, could you tell me about the routine that you adopted in assessing applications and choosing if you would whitelist them?
Yeah, so basically it's quite straightforward. So what we do, and we is my colleagues from collaboration product team. So together with our product architect and one of my other colleagues, every couple of weeks, I think, let's take every month, we have a meeting in our agenda called Teams Apps. We virtually sit together and we check the usage reporting, and then also we check, basically just go through the list of, okay, what are the new apps that are now available and does it have any value? So again, basically most third-party apps, if there's no demand from our business, then we don't really have a trigger to enable it. But also, of course, there's a lot of new things coming from Microsoft. They are developing a lot, and even it's all sometimes a bit hard to catch up with what's coming. So we indeed also check these new apps that are coming. Okay, what is Insights? What is the new the new roadmap app, what is the employee IDs, what is that? And we check it out. We see, okay, does it have any dependencies with, for example, with the Dataverse, or is it something we really want to offer? And then we indeed, for like I said, in Microsoft cases, we in most cases enable them, and of course where needed we pick it up in our backlog also to start promoting it, because of course enabling apps is one thing, but if you want to have a good user adoption, you should also of course stimulate your users to start working and say, hey, for this use case, for this problem that you might encounter, we now have this solution, and that is, I think, what is working well for us.
Nice. I really like how you approach this, and I think more and more organizations should do it that way. But if I would be a Heineken employee and I would like to use a certain third-party application, what would then the procedure would look like?
Yeah. So basically, in between, let's say, us and the business user or the end user, there's always the local IT. So the local IT is the first point of contact, which is local IT or the global service desk. And they are instructed to raise a ticket that ends up in, let's say, in our support group. So they can indeed raise tickets. They say, okay, we have this tool, short description, maybe a link to the site, and also maybe the security description of that tool. And then we get it in our, let's say, our queue. We can assess it, and indeed, if we trust it as safe and no, let's say, license implications, then we can enable it. Yeah.
Okay. And are there any specifics that you look at when you're assessing if a third-party application would be accepted? Is there a certain policy? Are you looking at the storage of data, other things that you look at besides the IT capacities that it's using?
Yeah, so basically we always check the privacy policy, which is quite standard. It's usually also part of the app description as it is in the Teams app overview. So that is indeed security, privacy, and license. That's basically the two topics we look at. And in case of doubt, of course, we have our security team within our IT organization that can also do an assessment if needed. Okay. But one thing that I also would like to mention is, of course, there's also still another category, and that's, of course, the homegrown apps, the apps that are built within Heineken itself. So for that, of course, there's a couple of things. What we did enable is allow users to upload custom apps for themselves. That's a feature now available in Microsoft Teams. That if our policy is that basically if you are a tester, developer, or in acceptance, we say, okay, we don't need to upload those apps to the app catalog for you anymore. You can basically do it yourself. You can basically locally upload your app package and then test it there. And our policy is that, okay, once it reaches, let's say, production status, and you want to offer it to a wider audience, then we can, then again, we follow the change process. They submit a change request, upload the package and the manifest, and then we upload it to the app catalog to make it available for all users. So basically, we want to, let's say, hide the whole development and testing from our users, because that's only confusing them. And then once they have a product that's really fit for production, we can take over and show it to the rest. And also that has been actually working. We are a large organization, so it would make sense maybe to also have what they call app configuration policies per country or opcode, to say, okay, I want to have a different app catalog for the Netherlands than for Brazil. However, at this moment, we decided not to do that for a couple of reasons. One, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of governance, a lot of updates. You need to, once you upload a new app, you need to then update multiple app configuration policies. Plus, actually, it is quite inspiring for users to say, hey, these apps are being used in Brazil. So in Brazil, they have this homegrown app that acts as a virtual agent for our service desk, for example. And basically, you create a little bit of marketplace to say, hey, maybe in our OpCo, we should also learn from them, or what we call, copy with pride. So basically, we keep, at this moment, until maybe it grows too large, we keep one global app catalog for all our users, no matter which country you are from.
Yeah, nice. I really like that approach, especially in the day and age that we live in, where we really want to do like the citizen development and more openly want to make sure that not for every use case custom development is taking place. So we still see a lot of organizations that the default is buy or build. And if there's not a good fitting existing application, we'll just build it. But then there's, if you're in a large organization, there might be other operating companies, other countries, other locations that something similar might have already been built, and then you could collaborate. Then there's open source. You have the Microsoft templates, which exists, which could be adopted or used as a boilerplate. So I really think that more organizations should look at such an approach. And it might feel a bit uncomfortable for there's like this always this the sprawl, like the people are afraid that things might explode or become uncontrollable. But the way that you're approaching it, I think it might be the right way. Just use measurement and control of growth, basically.
Yeah, and so far it's working, and I think I really like the fact that you can see, basically what are the other countries are doing, and it's an app catalog, so it's not you only see it when you look for it, so it's not basically in the way of your productivity in any way. So it's so far it's been good.
Great. Well, I would like to thank you for sharing.
No problem.
Yeah, great stuff. And for the viewers, see you in the next video.
All right. Bye.
365
Apps.
Show.